Welcome back. I am Nina Simone, your prodigal parent life coach. And today we're talking about one of the most confusing subjects many prodigal parents face. And that is helping, enabling, and healthy boundaries. I've had parents ask questions like, how do I know if I'm helping my adult child or enabling them? How do I know when it's time to step back? Am I being too hard, too soft? Or am I making things worse by rescuing them? And if you've ever asked yourself those questions, you are not alone. And the reason it's so difficult is because all three of these things can look very similar on the surface. Helping, enabling, and healthy boundaries, they can involve the same situation. And the difference is usually found in the purpose, the pattern, and the outcome. It'll make sense in a minute. So today I want to walk through each one together. So first, let's start with helping. What helping looks like and what helping is not. Okay? In fact, sometimes helping is exactly the right thing to do. And the question isn't, should I ever help my adult child? But the better question would be, what kind of help do they actually need? Okay? What kind of help actually helps, if that makes sense? Healthy help is usually temporary. It's thoughtful, it's intentional, it moves your child towards responsibility rather than away from it. For example, let's say your adult child loses their job. Okay? Helping might sound like, I'll buy groceries for the next 2 weeks while you're out interviewing. Or you can stay here for 1 month while you save money and look for work. Notice that there's a purpose, there's a time frame, there's a goal. Helping should move someone towards stability, not away from it, not towards dependence. Another example, let's say your child calls because they're discouraged about something. Helping may simply be listening, praying with them, encouraging them, reminding them that God hasn't given up on them. Helping doesn't always involve money. Sometimes your presence is more valuable than your wallet. Now, a lot of them might not think so, but true statement. Now, let's talk about enabling, because this is where parents often struggle. What enabling looks like, enabling usually begins with good intentions. No parent wakes up thinking, I want to make this the worst situation ever. We step in because we love our children and we don't want them to hurt or suffer. We don't want them to fail, right? And we don't want them to experience negative consequences. But sometimes our rescue becomes the very thing preventing their growth. For example, your adult child, let's say they lose another job because they repeatedly arrive to work late. So this has become a pattern, okay? And instead of allowing them to experience the consequence of their actions, you immediately pay all of their bills again. And then a month later, the same thing happens. And then again, the pattern never changes, right? Another example. Let's say your child asks to borrow money. You already know they haven't been honest with you about how they spend it. You know this has happened many times before. You're feeling uneasy, but guilt says, what if they really need it this time? So you give the money anyway. Nothing changed. The request comes again and again. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, am I helping them become more responsible? Or am I making it easier for this pattern or this cycle to continue? And that's a difficult question, but it's an important one. Scripture says in Galatians 6:7, what we reap, we sow. Right? So when we constantly interrupt every consequence, we may also interrupt opportunities for their growth. Now, let me say something very important. Allowing consequences is not the same as abandoning your child. I'm not talking about that. Those are not the same thing. You can continue loving them and praying for them and encouraging them, speaking truth to them without removing every consequence they face. Now, let's talk about healthy boundaries. I think boundaries are probably one of the most misunderstood topics for parents. At one point, it was for me. Okay. We have to know what a healthy boundary really is and what it's not. And one of the things that a boundary is not is it's not punishment. A boundary is not revenge. A boundary is not an attempt to control another adult. No. A healthy boundary simply communicates what you will and what you will not accept or participate in. Notice something. A boundary is about your behavior, not controlling theirs. Let me give you an example. You might say, I love you, but I won't allow drugs in my home. That's a boundary, right? Or you can say, I love having you visit, but if you begin yelling or becoming verbally abusive, I'm going to end the conversation and your visit. That's a boundary. Another one. I'm willing to help you create a budget, but I'm not willing to continue paying the same bill for you every month without a plan for change. That's a boundary. Do you notice what all three have in common? They communicate love, but also clarity. Not anger, not punishment, not manipulation, but love and clarity. And one thing that I do hear parents say is, but what if they get angry? Well, my answer is they might. Healthy boundaries don't guarantee that someone else will like your decision. Sometimes the healthiest decision is also the least popular one. Your responsibility is not to make your adult child happy. Your responsibility is to respond with wisdom and love and integrity and in an upright and loving fashion, right? Before your child. Another thing that I hear is, what if they stop talking to me? For some, that is a deep fear that some parents carry, right? And I don't want to minimize it because it's painful. But remember this: removing healthy boundaries to avoid conflict rarely creates a healthier relationship. It usually creates more resentment, more confusion, and more unhealthy patterns. True healthy boundaries don't damage healthy relationships. They often strengthen them because they create honesty, respect, and consistency. So when you're in this situation, how do you know which path to take? Okay. Well, here are 3 questions that I encourage parents to ask before responding. Number 1, and this question is for you, not them. This is to yourself. Number 1, is what I'm about to do moving my child towards responsibility or away from it? Number 2, am I making this decision out of wisdom or out of fear or guilt? And number 3, if this same situation happened 6 months from now, would I still believe this was the healthiest response? Those 3 questions have helped many parents to slow down before reacting emotionally. And it helps them to give them a little bit more peace and clarity because we know we want to respond and not react. So if you need to, go back over this video and over the different the 3 questions and the scenarios to help you in your situation. It might not be exactly your situation, but it gives you, just a feel of what a true healthy boundary is and how to navigate through that. Okay? But before we finish today, I do want to leave you with this thought. You can be compassionate without becoming responsible for another adult's choices. You can be generous without rescuing someone. Okay? You don't have to be someone's rescue plan. And you can definitely love your child deeply while still having healthy boundaries. Those things are not opposites. In fact, they often work together because healthy love tells the truth. Healthy love takes responsibility for what belongs to it. Healthy love trusts God with what belongs to Him. And that's hard for a lot of us. Our children don't belong to us. We don't supposed to have that kind of control. Okay? I want you this week to think about one situation where you've been struggling. Okay? Whatever it is, one situation you've been struggling with. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's living arrangements. Maybe it's communication. And when I mean struggling with, I meant with your child, not you personally. A situation that you've been struggling with your child. Okay? Maybe it's repeating requests for help. Before you respond, I want you to pause. Then ask yourself those 3 questions. Okay? That I mentioned earlier. And then I want you to pray. seek God's wisdom, and then respond from wisdom, not fear or guilt. Please replay this video. A lot of these steps has helped me. So parents, if this has encouraged you, I'd love for you to subscribe if you haven't, and to continue walking this journey with me. There is some type of video upload every day, whether it's a short video or a longer video. And each week, we're talking about practical coaching tips, biblical encouragement, healthy boundaries, communication, and finding peace while loving our adult prodigal children. So I thank you again for spending this time with me, and I want you to remember, don't believe the lie. Believe God's truth instead. I'll see you in the next video.